The station floated in the silence of deep space, a shining ring of metal around the blue star of Valar Prime. Humans were still new here, a small race among hundreds of others, and most of them were treated like children in a room full of giants. But Daniel Reed never felt that way. Not because of his strength, but because he had a friend who was respected by all. The alien Kale of House Sereth. Daniel was an engineer, a man who fixed machines and argued with faulty circuits. Kale was the opposite, a noble of the Vaelari, tall and graceful with skin that shimmered faintly like silver under light. Yet somehow the two had grown close. Daniel often joked that Kale had the patience of 10 lifetimes to keep up with a human like him, while Kale said Daniel's stubbornness was refreshing compared to the cold politics of his people. But now, as Daniel stood outside the medical chamber, all his jokes had gone dry. Inside, Kale was dying. The machines hissed softly, trying to hold the alien body together. Tubes of glowing blue liquid ran across Kale's arms. His chest rose and fell with effort, each breath sounding more fragile than the last. "Daniel," came the soft voice of the doctor, a Vaelari with a solemn expression. "He does not have long, you should go in." Daniel swallowed hard and stepped into the chamber. The air smelled sterile, but underneath it was a faint metallic tang, the scent of failing Vaelari organs. Kyle lay on a bed of energy cloth, his once bright silver eyes dimmed to gray. "Daniel," Kale said, his voice weak but steady. "My human brother." Daniel pulled a chair close, fighting the tightness in his throat. "Don't talk like that, you'll pull through. I've seen you fight entire councils with nothing but words. You're tougher than this." Kyle gave a faint smile. "Disease does not bow to politics, my friend. You must accept this as I have." Daniel shook his head, but he knew it was true. The disease, called Ferreth's rot, was rare even among the Vaelari, and no cure had ever been found. Daniel had begged both human and alien doctors to try everything. Nothing worked. "I'm sorry," Daniel whispered. Kale reached out, his long silver fingers gripping Daniel's hand with surprising strength. "Do not be sorry. You gave me joy. You gave me laughter. Few in this galaxy can say that." The human's eyes stung. He squeezed Kale's hand. "You're not allowed to go yet. You still owe me a rematch and strategy tiles." Kyle chuckled. Weakly. "Always the challenger." He coughed and his body trembled, but his voice hardened. "Daniel, listen to me. There is little time. I must give you something." Daniel frowned. "Kale, please save your strength." But Kale shook his head. His other hand moved to a small crystal tablet beside the bed. It glowed with Vaelari script. "This is my will, sealed by the High Council. You are named in it." Daniel blinked, in surprise. "Me? Why would I?" Kale cut him off. "Because you are the only one I trust. When I am gone, my wealth, my holdings, my legacy, it will all pass to you." Daniel stared at him in shock. "What? That's insane. You have family, allies. I can't—" "You can and you must," Kale interrupted. His eyes glowed faintly as though some inner fire refused to die. "My estate will be a target. Others will try to seize it, to twist it. Only you can protect it from them. And more than that," Kyle's gaze softened, "you must look after Celira." Daniel froze. He had met Celira only a handful of times. Kale's wife, a tall and graceful woman whose voice carried both wisdom and steel. She had always been polite with Daniel, though distant, and now Kale was asking him to. "I can't," Daniel said, shaking his head. "She's your wife. She doesn't need me. She needs someone who will not betray her," Kyle said firmly. "Among my people, death changes bonds. She will be left vulnerable, surrounded by hunters. I have no brother, no heir. But I have you. You are more than human to me, Daniel. You are family." The words hit him like a weight. Daniel felt his chest tighten, unable to answer. He wanted to argue, to refuse, but the look in Kale's eyes stopped him. Daniel swallowed hard. "If this is what you want, then I'll do it. I'll protect her. I'll protect everything. Kale smiled, a faint shimmer of relief. Good. Then I can rest. The machines around them beeped softly, their tones slowing. Kyle closed his eyes, his hand still gripping Daniel's. Do not mourn too long, human brother, Kyle whispered. Live. Carry my legacy. And remember, you were chosen, not by law, but by trust. His breath shuddered once, twice, and then the machines fell silent. Daniel sat frozen, his friend's hand still in his own. He wanted to scream, to rage, but no sound came. He simply sat there, feeling the warmth fade from Kale's skin. The doctor entered quietly, bowing his head. He is gone. May his spirit join the stars. Daniel stood slowly, his body heavy. He looked down at Kyle one last time, then turned and left the chamber, his mind numb. The days after Kyle's death blurred together. The station was alive, with rumors. Velari nobles whispered in corners, human traders speculated in bars. Word spread quickly that Kale's will had named an outsider, Daniel Reed, a human, as his heir. Some called it madness, others called it genius. But everyone agreed. It would change everything. Daniel sat in his quarters, staring at the crystal. Tablet Kale had pressed into his hand. He had not opened it yet. He wasn't ready. A chime sounded at his door. He looked up as the panel slid open, revealing her, Celira. She stepped inside gracefully, her silver blue eyes sharp. She wore mourning robes of deep violet, but her expression was more steel than sorrow. Daniel Reed, she said softly, her voice calm but carrying weight. So it is true. He named you. Daniel stood awkwardly. I didn't ask for this. I tried to argue with him, but he... I know him, she interrupted. If Kyle made a choice, nothing could change it. There was a silence between them. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to say. Celira studied him carefully. You are human. Many will see you as weak. Already the houses are circling, waiting to tear apart what remains of his legacy. Daniel frowned. Then why me? Why would he trust me with all of this, instead of one of your people? Celira's eyes softened, though only slightly. Because you were his friend, truly his friend, that is rare among us. Daniel had no answer. He simply lowered his head. Celira stepped closer, her presence both commanding and strangely fragile beneath the surface. If you truly mean to honor him, then you must stand strong, not for yourself, for him, for us. Daniel nodded slowly. I don't know how, but I'll try. I promised him. For the first time, a shadow of warmth touched her expression. Then perhaps we will survive this storm. The door closed behind her, leaving Daniel alone once more. He looked down at the glowing crystal tablet, Kale's final gift. His hands trembled as he finally pressed his finger against its surface. The holographic seal broke, and words of alien light filled the room. Kyle's voice, recorded before his death, spoke softly. To Daniel Reed, my human brother. This is my last gift to you. Daniel closed his eyes, listening as the weight of a new destiny settled on his shoulders. And so began a story that would bind him not only to Kale's memory, but to a future far greater than anything he had ever imagined. The council chamber of the Velari was nothing like the human halls of government Daniel had seen before. It was not filled with chairs or long tables, but with tall arcs of light that stretched high into the air, forming glowing pillars that shimmered like living crystal. Voices carried not only through sound but through faint vibrations in the air, each word rippling like music. Daniel stood at the center of it all, a human among giants. His dark hair was messy, his uniform wrinkled compared to the flowing robes of the Velari nobles. He shifted uncomfortably as dozens of alien eyes turned toward him, some curious, others hostile. At the head of the chamber sat the High Speaker, an elder Velari, whose skin glowed faintly with golden patterns, showing her high rank. She raised a long hand and the chamber fell silent. We are gathered, she said, her voice calm yet strong, to witness the reading of Cale of House Sereth's will. His death was a loss to us all. His legacy must be honored. Daniel clenched, his fists at his sides, still feeling the ache of grief. Cale had been more than a friend. He had been a brother in a place where Daniel often felt alone. A glowing crystal sphere rose into the air. It flickered once. Then Cale's voice filled the chamber, recorded before his death. To my people, I leave my respect. To the council, I leave my loyalty. To my human brother Daniel Reed, I leave my wealth, my holdings, and my bond. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed in disbelief. A human? One noble shouted. This is madness. He cannot claim such things. Another hissed. This breaks tradition. Daniel flinched, but the voice of the high speaker cut through the noise. Silence. The chamber grew quiet again. The high speaker's golden eyes turned to Daniel. Daniel Reed, do you accept what has been given to you? Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. His mind raced. He had spent the last few nights unable to sleep, staring at Cale's crystal tablet, listening to his friend's recorded words again and again. He didn't want power, didn't want fleets or estates. He wanted Cale back. But that was impossible. He remembered Cale's last words. You were chosen not by law but by trust. Daniel swallowed and lifted his head. Yes, he said, his voice rough but steady. I accept, not for myself, for him. A murmur swept through the chamber. Some nobles sneered. Others leaned back with thoughtful expressions. The high speaker nodded slowly. Then by the law of bond inheritance, you are now the guardian of House Sereth's wealth and the protector of its last member, Celira. Daniel's stomach tightened. Celira. He turned his head. She stood at the edge of the chamber, tall and calm, her silver blue eyes unreadable. She had changed since the day of Cale's death. Her mourning robes had been replaced by deep armor-like cloth, her shoulders squared, her presence commanding. She did not bow or look away. Instead, she stared at Daniel as if measuring him, judging if he truly was worthy of what Cale had done. The high speaker continued, her voice like steel. But beware, human. By accepting this, you step into our world of power and danger. Already rival houses move against you. They will not honor Cale's choice. You must prove yourself or be destroyed. Daniel took a deep breath. Then I'll prove myself. After the ceremony, Daniel was escorted to Cale's estate on the orbital station. He had visited it before. Grand halls of shining metal, gardens of glowing plants from Velari worlds, statues that shimmered like living stone. But this time, it felt different. It was no longer Cale's home. It was his responsibility. Celira waited for him in the central hall. She stood straight, her face calm as always, but Daniel could feel the storm beneath her silence. You accepted, she said simply. Daniel nodded. I couldn't refuse him. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Do you understand what you've done? I understand enough, Daniel said. Though the truth was he understood very little. Celira moved closer, her voice low but sharp. Cale's wealth is not just coins and ships, it is influence, power. Enemies will come for it, and for me. You are human. They think you are weak. They will try to break you. Daniel straightened his shoulders. Let them try. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe even respect. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Very well. Then you must learn. You will not survive otherwise. The days that followed were a blur of lessons and challenges. Celira became his guide, though she did not make things easy. She explained the complex webs of Velari politics, their laws of inheritance, their codes of honor. Daniel tried to keep up, but it was like learning a new language in a game of chess at the same time. He stumbled, made mistakes, and more than once Celira's sharp words cut into him like a blade. Yet she did not abandon him. She drilled him harder, pushing him to think faster, to see the hidden traps behind every polite word of the nobles. and there were traps. Within days, Daniel was summoned to meet with rival houses. Some tried to flatter him, offering alliances. Others mocked him openly, suggesting he sell Kale's holdings and return to his small human world. One night, as Daniel returned to his quarters, the door hissed open to reveal chaos. His rooms were wrecked, furniture overturned, walls scorched by plasma fire. A warning. Another night he barely escaped an accident when the shuttle he boarded malfunctioned mid-flight. If not for Celera's quick action, he might have died. Each attempt reminded him of Kale's words. They will come for you. Despite the danger, Daniel refused to give up. He used what he knew best, not politics, not tradition, but human ingenuity. Where the Velari thought in rigid rules, Daniel thought sideways. When a rival house tried to sabotage one of Kale's mining colonies, Daniel didn't just send guards. He reprogrammed the old human drones he had smuggled from Earth, using them in ways the Velari never expected. The sabotage failed, and for the first time, whispers spread that the human heir might not be so weak after all. Celera noticed. She began to look at him differently, not as a burden Kale had left behind, but as someone who might truly hold his ground. You are unpredictable, she told him one evening as they walked through the glowing gardens of the estate. That is dangerous, but also useful. Daniel gave a tired smile. I'll take that as a compliment. For a moment her eyes softened, though she quickly looked away. Do not mistake my words for kindness. We are not safe yet. The storm is still building. The storm struck sooner than Daniel expected. At the next council gathering, the nobles of House Daith, Kale's old rivals, stood and accused Daniel of unworthiness. This human, their leader sneered, does not understand our laws. He is no guardian, no heir. He is a thief hiding behind Kale's will. We demand the council strip him of all holdings and give them to a true Velari. The chamber erupted again, voices clashing. Some supported Daith, others argued against them. The High Speaker turned to Daniel. What say you, human? Do you deny their claim? Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, to curse, but he remembered Celera's lessons. Never show weakness, never show anger. He stood tall and looked straight at the council. I am not a thief, he said firmly. Kyle trusted me because I was his friend. Not for power, not for wealth. Friendship is something beyond law, and if you think I cannot protect what he left me, then test me. But know this, if you take from me, you dishonor Kale's choice, and I will not forgive dishonor. The chamber fell silent. Some nobles smirked. Others nodded thoughtfully. The leader of House Daith glared at him with burning hatred. The High Speaker's golden eyes glowed faintly. So be it. The council will watch. Your worth will be tested, not in words but in deeds. Daniel exhaled slowly, his body trembling inside, though he stood tall on the outside. As he left the chamber, Celera walked beside him. She glanced at him, her voice quiet. You spoke well. Daniel gave a dry laugh. I was terrified. Her lips curved slightly, just barely a smile. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Then her face hardened again. But remember this. The enemy who hates you most now knows you are not afraid. That makes you dangerous to him, and that means he will strike harder. Daniel nodded, determination settling in his chest. He had accepted Kale's gift, Kale's trust. Now he had no choice but to carry it forward. The inheritance was no longer just wealth or titles. It was survival. It was Kale's legacy, and Daniel would not let it be stolen. The orbital estate of House Sareth had grown quiet after the storm of council debates, but quiet did not mean safe. Daniel could feel the pressure building, like the air before lightning struck. Rival houses had not stopped their plans. If anything, they were only waiting for the right moment to strike harder. Daniel spent his mornings buried in Kale's records, contracts, fleets, colony maps. He could fix machines, but now he had to learn how to manage wealth across star systems. Every file he opened seemed bigger than the last. Mining colonies with thousands of workers, cargo fleets carrying exotic metals, even research labs studying technologies that humans barely understood. It was overwhelming. At night, Scifi trained him. She brought him into the estate's grand hall, cleared of its decorations, and made him stand in the center. She circled him like a teacher with a slow, sharp gaze. "When you speak, you must not stumble," she told him. "When you move, you must not hesitate. A single mistake will be seen as weakness, and weakness is blood in the water." Daniel sighed. "I was an engineer, not a noble. I used to argue with broken machines, not alien politicians." Scifi's eyes narrowed. "And yet Kale trusted you with more than machines. He trusted you with lives." The words struck him like a stone. Daniel tightened his jaw and nodded. "Fine, teach me." So she did. She taught him how the Velari greeted each other with subtle gestures, how to read the flicker of their silver blue eyes for lies, how to turn an insult back on the speaker without raising his voice. She drilled him until his head ached, but slowly, Daniel began to adapt. The threats did not wait. One evening, as Daniel walked through the glowing garden of Kale's estate, the air shimmered. A dark figure leapt from the shadows, a blade of energy flashing in his hand. Daniel froze, but Scifi was faster. Her arm swept forward, a hidden weapon sliding from her sleeve, and with a bright crack of light, she deflected the strike. The attacker hissed, their form twisting in the light, and vanished into the shadows again. Daniel's breath came fast. "An assassin." Scifi nodded, her eyes sharp. "Sent by one of the houses, they test us. Next time it will be more than a single blade." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we'll be ready." The next day, Daniel decided to face the problem, head on. He and Scifi called a meeting with the captains of Kyle's fleets. The captains arrived in holographic form, each projected from across star systems. They were tall Velari, armored in glowing fabrics, their eyes cold as they studied the human who now carried Kale's name. One of them spoke first, his tone sharp. "You are no Kale. Why should we follow you?" Daniel straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of their stares. "You're right. I'm not Kale. I can't replace him. But I can honor him. He trusted me, and that should mean something. To all of you," another captain scoffed. "Words. Trust will not win battles." Daniel smiled faintly. "No, but planning will. Kale's enemies want his wealth. They'll come for the mining colonies first. If we hold those, we hold the heart of his legacy." The captains exchanged glances. They had expected fear, maybe begging. Instead, Daniel offered strategy. Simple, but sound. Finally, one captain bowed his head slightly. "Very well, human. We will see if Kale's trust was well placed." When the meeting ended, Daniel slumped back in his chair, exhausted. Scifi stood beside him, her voice quiet, but sharp. "You are learning, but this is only the beginning." Days passed, and the storm finally broke. News came from a mining colony on the outer rim of Kale's holdings. Pirates had attacked, seizing cargo and killing workers. But Daniel soon learned the truth. They were not random pirates. They were mercenaries hired by House Daith, Kale's old rivals. Scifi's face hardened when the report arrived. "They mean to bleed us piece by piece. If we do nothing, the rest of Kale's holdings will fall." Daniel stood, determination in his chest. "Then we hit back." Scifi raised an eyebrow. "You would go yourself?" "Yes," Daniel said. "If I stay here and hide behind walls, they'll think I'm weak. I need to show them I won't let Kale's legacy be stolen." For a long moment, Scifi studied him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well, but if you go, I go too. You will not face them alone." The journey to the mining colony was tense. Daniel sat in the command seat of one of Kyle's warships, its controls glowing faintly under his hands. He wasn't the pilot, the ship's crew handled that, but his presence there mattered. The ship slid out of warp near the mining colony, and Daniel's stomach twisted at the sight. The colony floated above a rocky moon, its surface scarred by laser fire. Wreckage drifted in orbit, and the colony's defense turrets lay silent, destroyed. "Pirates still present," reported the captain at his side. "Multiple ships. Their weapons are armed." Daniel clenched his fists. He had no experience in space battles, but he knew one thing. If they didn't fight, Kale's people would lose everything. "Send a message," he said. "Tell them this colony belongs to House Seroth. If they don't leave, we'll make them." The pirates answered, with laser fire. The battle began. The warship shuddered as beams of energy struck its shields. Crew shouted, alarms blared. The stars outside lit up with streaks of fire. Daniel gripped the edge of his chair. He wanted to panic, but he forced himself to think. Kale had taught him one thing about battles: never fight the enemy where they expect you. He leaned toward the captain. "Their ships are faster, right?" "Yes," the captain said quickly. "And they outnumber us." "Then we don't chase them. Pull back toward the colony. Use the mining station as cover. Force them to come to us." The captain hesitated, then gave the order. The warship shifted position, sliding closer to the ruined colony. The pirates followed, expecting an easy kill. But Daniel had studied the colony systems before they left. He remembered something important: old human mining drones stored in the docks. Drones most Velari ignored. "Activate the drones," he ordered. "Send them out with cutting lasers, target the pirates' engines." The crew stared, surprised. Then they obeyed. Dozens of small, clunky drones poured from the colony's docks. The pirates laughed at first, seeing only old machines. But when the drones swarmed their engines, slicing through metal with sharp beams, laughter turned to panic. One pirate ship exploded, another spun out of control. The tide of battle shifted. The remaining pirates fled into the stars, leaving the colony free. When the battle ended, Daniel stood on the colony's deck, looking at the survivors. They bowed to him, some with tears in their eyes. "You saved us," one worker said. Daniel shook his head. "Kale saved you. His trust saved you. I just did what he would have wanted." Behind him, Celira watched quietly. For the first time, she allowed a small smile to touch her lips. "You are not him," she said softly. "But perhaps you are what he saw in you." Daniel turned to her, his voice low. "I don't know if I can ever be what they need, but I'll try. For him. For you." Her eyes met his, steady and unreadable, but she did not look away. Back on the orbital estate, news of the victory spread quickly. Nobles who had doubted Daniel now whispered differently. Some still mocked him, but others began to wonder if the human might truly stand where Kale once stood. But not all were pleased. In the shadows of another house, the leader of Daith sat in silence, his eyes cold as ice. "The human learns too. Quickly," he muttered. "If we do not end him soon, he will become a true threat." His advisor leaned forward. "Shall we send more mercenaries?" The leader's lips curled in a thin smile. "No, this time we do not use outsiders. This time we strike at the heart. If the human values trust so much, let us see how he survives betrayal." And so the storm darkened again. Daniel had won a battle, but the war was only beginning. He had Kale's wealth, Kale's wife's loyalty, and the faint respect of some nobles. But more than that, he now had enemies who would stop at nothing. As he stood in the garden of Kale's estate that night, stars glittering above, Daniel whispered to himself, "You trusted me, Kale. I won't let you down. Whatever comes next, I'll face it." And deep within the estate, Celira listened quietly, her own thoughts hidden, her loyalty bound by duty and something else that neither of them yet understood. The estate of House Seroth stood tall and silent, its silver walls reflecting the light of the stars. To most it looked peaceful. But Daniel knew better. Peace in the Velari world was always thin, like glass ready to shatter. Behind every polite word was a blade, behind every bow was a threat. Since the battle at the mining colony, Daniel's life had only grown more dangerous. He had earned respect, yes, but respect in this galaxy always came with more enemies. Rivals who had once laughed at him now plotted in shadows, planning sharper attacks, and through it all, Celira stayed at his side. Daniel and Celira spent their days buried in work. They studied Kale's old records, tracking every colony, every fleet, every trade route. Daniel often grew frustrated. The numbers seemed endless, the politics endless too. But Celira never wavered. She taught him the details with the patience of a teacher, though her voice was always firm. One evening, as they stood in the great hall reviewing reports, Daniel rubbed his forehead. "It's too much. I fix machines, not empires. Kyle must have had 10 minds to manage all this." Celira's silver blue eyes studied him quietly. Kyle was skilled, yes, but even he was only one man. What made him strong was not perfection. It was trust. He trusted others to help him carry the weight. Daniel looked at her. "And you?" Her gaze held his for a long moment. Then she nodded. "And me." Silence filled the hall, broken only by the hum of the estate's lights. For the first time, Daniel felt the bond between them grow stronger. Not just two people forced together, but two partners trying to carry a legacy that was almost impossible. But danger was never far. Late. One night, alarms echoed through the estate. Daniel rushed into the corridor, Celira already at his side, her robe flowing like a blade of shadow. Guards ran past them shouting. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "Sabotage," one guard answered. "The power cores in the lower chambers overloaded." Daniel's heart pounded. "If they go, the whole estate will blow." They raced down into the lower chambers where the walls glowed red from heat. Sparks showered from overloaded conduits, the air thick with the smell of burning metal. Daniel dropped to his knees beside the main console. "I can fix this," he muttered. His fingers flew across the controls, rerouting energy lines. But the system was fighting back like someone had programmed it to resist him. Sweat dripped down his face. "Come on, come on." Behind him, Celira drew her weapon, her eyes scanning the shadows. Then she froze. From the darkness, figures emerged. 3 assassins cloaked in black, their blades glowing faintly. Celira's voice was calm but sharp. "Daniel, do not stop." Daniel didn't even look up. "I don't plan to." The assassins rushed forward. Celira met them head-on, her blade flashing like silver fire. Sparks lit the chamber as metal clashed with energy. She moved with deadly grace, each strike precise, each dodge smooth. But 3 against 1 was no easy fight. Daniel's console screamed with warnings. He gritted his teeth, forcing the system into shutdown mode. The energy lines finally began to cool, the red glow fading from the walls. He let out a shaky breath of relief. Then he turned and froze. Celira stood with her blade raised, blood, blue and shining, trickling down her arm. 2 assassins lay on the ground, but the last one still fought, his blade slashing dangerously close to her. "Hey!" Daniel shouted. Without thinking, he grabbed a fallen pipe from the floor and charged. He wasn't trained, wasn't fast, but he swung with raw human strength. The assassin turned too late. The pipe slammed into his side, throwing him against the wall. Celira finished him with a clean strike. For a moment, the chamber was silent, except for their heavy breathing. Daniel dropped the pipe, his hands shaking. "Are you hurt?" Celira looked at her arm, then at him. Her eyes softened just for a second. "It is nothing. You saved me." Daniel shook his head. "No, you saved me." Again. Her lips curved slightly, the smallest ghost of a smile. "Then, perhaps we saved each other." After that night, their partnership deepened. Celira no longer spoke to him as an outsider, but as someone who stood beside her. She shared stories of Kyle, stories she had never told before. She spoke of their bond, how Velari marriage was more than love. It was a spiritual connection, a joining of souls. "When one dies," she explained softly, as they walked through the glowing gardens, "the bond does not break. It lingers, a shadow, a weight, sometimes a comfort, sometimes a wound." Daniel listened quietly. "That's why he chose me, isn't it?" Because he didn't want you left alone. Scifi stopped walking. Her eyes turned to him, silver blue, glinting in the starlight. Yes. Kyle believed only you could carry the bond without being corrupted by politics. Only you could protect it. And me. Daniel's chest tightened. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. You are, she said simply. You proved it. Her words stayed with him long after, burning brighter than the stars above. But not everything was warmth. A week later, as Daniel studied reports in the estate, he noticed something strange. A pattern in Cale's medical files, hidden deep within, encrypted layers. He spent hours unlocking it, his fingers flying across the console until the truth appeared. Cale's death had not been natural. The disease in his body had been pushed, accelerated by toxins delivered in small doses. Someone had poisoned him. Daniel sat frozen, his breath caught in his throat. Then anger boiled inside him. He called Scifi to the chamber. She read the files, her face calm, but her eyes dark with fury. So it is true, she whispered. I feared it, but now we know. Daniel clenched his fists. House Daith. Scifi nodded once. Who else? They wanted his holdings. They wanted him gone. Daniel slammed his hand against the console. They didn't just want him gone, they murdered him. And now they're coming after us. Scifi laid a hand on his arm, her touch firm. Then we will strike back. But not with rage. With proof. If we reveal this to the council without evidence, they will deny it. We must be careful. Daniel looked into her eyes, fire in his voice. Then we'll get proof, whatever it takes. Their search for proof became a secret mission. Daniel used his engineering skills to break into encrypted trade logs, finding shipments that should not exist. Small containers delivered to Cale's estate in the weeks before his illness. Shipments linked to merchants loyal to House Daith. Scifi used her political contacts, speaking in whispers, trading favors, gathering information from those who owed her. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. Late one night, as they studied the files side by side, their shoulders almost touching, Daniel whispered, We can prove it. We can show the council Cale was murdered. Scifi nodded slowly. Yes. But proof will make them desperate. House Daith will not let us live if they know what we carry. Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. Then we'll face them together. Her gaze met his, strong and unwavering. Together. The next day, they received a message from the High Speaker. The council had called for another gathering. Rumors had already spread. Rumors of Cale's death, of Daith's hand in it. As Daniel prepared, he felt the weight of everything on his shoulders. Not just Cale's wealth, not just his estate, but the truth. A truth that could shake the Velari to their core. He stood before a mirror, adjusting the robes Scifi had given him. They were simple compared to the grand clothing of other nobles, but they fit him well. For the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider wearing another man's name. Scifi entered the room, her presence calm but powerful. She wore ceremonial armor, silver and deep violet, her eyes bright like stars. Daniel stared for a moment, then nodded. We're ready. She stepped close, her voice low. Cale trusted you. I trust you. Do not falter. Daniel swallowed, his chest tight. I won't. That night, as they stood side by side preparing to face the council, Daniel realized something important. This was no longer only about Cale. It was about them, about the bond they had forged in fire and danger, about the trust that had grown between human and Velari, and about the future they would fight for, together. The council chamber was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. It was a great circle, its walls lined with silver stone that shimmered faintly with inner light. Around the circle sat the high nobles of the Velari, their robes bright with colors of their houses, their expressions cold as the stars. In the center stood Daniel and Scifi. The silence was heavy, broken only by the low hum of the chamber's energy fields. Then the high speaker, an elder with pale silver eyes, rose from her seat. "House Seroth has called this gathering," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. "You bring claim of treachery, of murder. Speak and be judged." All eyes turned toward them. Daniel felt the weight of their stares press against him like a storm. He swallowed hard, but he did not look away. Celira stepped forward first, her voice strong. Kyle Seroth did not die from sickness. He was poisoned. "We bring proof." A murmur swept the chamber. Some nobles leaned forward with interest, others narrowed their eyes in anger. House Daith's representatives, seated across the circle, shifted uneasily but said nothing. Daniel stepped to the console at the chamber's center. With a steady hand, he activated the files he and Celira had gathered. The air shimmered as glowing screens rose, filled with Kale's medical scans, trade logs, and encrypted records. "Here," Daniel said, his voice carrying across the room. Kale's body showed signs of toxins. Substances not found in nature, delivered slowly over time. And here, shipments of these substances delivered to House Seroth's estate, hidden under false trade codes. These shipments came from merchants, loyal to House Daith. The chamber erupted with whispers. The high speaker raised a hand for silence. "Do you claim House Daith murdered Kale Seroth?" Celira's eyes burned with fire. "We do not claim, we show truth." At once, the nobles of House Daith rose to their feet. Their leader, Lord Vaith Daith, tall and sharp-eyed, pointed at Daniel. "Lies," he shouted. "This human twists our codes, forges records. You disgrace this council with falsehoods." Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood his ground. "These records are Kale's own. His codes, his seals. You can test them. Every word is true." The high speaker gestured, and scribes moved forward, scanning the files. Moments later, their voices rang out. "Authentic. The records are not forged." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Lord Vaith's face twisted with rage. "Even if true, you cannot prove our hand in it. Perhaps merchants acted alone. Perhaps Kale had many enemies." Daniel felt fury rise within him. He took a step closer, his voice sharp. "No merchant acts alone in your house. Every ship, every cargo, every word is under your command. You wanted Kale's wealth, you wanted his seat, and you killed him to take it." The words cut through the chamber like a blade. The council fell, silent. Every noble watched, waiting. The high speaker's eyes turned to Lord Vaith. "House Daith stands accused. Do you deny?" For a heartbeat, Lord Vaith hesitated. His eyes flicked toward his allies. And in that moment, Daniel saw the truth. Not just guilt, but fear. Then Vaith's hand dropped to his side and his blade flashed free. He lunged across the chamber straight for Daniel. Chaos exploded. Celira leapt between them, her blade meeting Vaith's with a clash that rang through the chamber. Guards rushed forward, but other Daith nobles drew weapons too. In moments, the chamber became a battlefield. Daniel ducked as a blade swung toward him, barely avoiding the strike. He grabbed a fallen guard's staff, blocking another attack. The weapon was heavy, awkward, but he fought with desperation, his heart hammering. Beside him, Celira moved like a storm, her silver blade cutting down attackers with perfect precision. But there were too many. Daniel swung the staff, knocking an enemy to the ground. He shouted, his voice raw. "This is your proof." Daith shows his guilt with his own hands. Some nobles hesitated, their weapons lowering as they realized the truth. But others joined the fight, old alliances driving them forward. The chamber roared with battle. Energy blades clashed, sparks flew, shouts filled the air. Daniel fought harder than he ever had in his life. He was no soldier, but he refused to fall. Again and again he blocked strikes, shoved enemies away, used his strength to survive. At one point, a blade came too close, slicing across his side. Pain flared hot, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. Through the chaos, he kept his eyes on Celira. She was surrounded, fighting three at once. Daniel's chest burned with fear. He charged, staff swinging wildly, knocking one attacker aside. Salira's eyes met his for a brief second, and in that second he saw something fierce and unspoken. Trust. Together they fought back to back, human and Velari, every movement in sync. The battle raged until finally, the High Speaker's voice cut through. The storm. Enough. A blinding light burst from the chamber's walls, forcing all weapons to still. Guards loyal to the speaker poured in, surrounding the fighters. Lord Vaith stood panting, his blade dripping with energy sparks. His eyes burned with hatred as he glared at Daniel and Salira. The High Speaker's face was cold as stone. House Daith has shown its guilt. You bring blades into this council. You betray our laws. You are stripped of title, stripped of name. You will face judgment. The guard seized Vaith and his allies, dragging them away. He struggled, his voice filled with rage. This is not the end. Humans will never rule here. Seroth will fall. But his words faded as he was forced from the chamber. Silence followed, heavy and long. At last, the High Speaker turned to Daniel. Her eyes studied him deeply. You have brought truth into the light, she said. And you have shown courage, though you are not of our kind. Kael's trust in you was not misplaced. Daniel stood tall, though his side throbbed with pain. I only did what was right. Kael deserved justice. Salira deserved truth. The speaker's expression softened, just slightly. Then justice has been done. House Seroth stands secure, and you, Daniel, will be remembered. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Some nobles bowed their heads. Others looked at him with new respect. For the first time, Daniel felt he was not just tolerated. He was seen. That night after the council ended, Daniel and Salira stood on the balcony of the estate. The stars stretched above them, endless and bright. The weight of battle still lingered, but for the first time Daniel felt hope. Salira stood beside him, her arm bandaged but her eyes calm. It is done. Daith is finished. Kael is avenged. Daniel nodded slowly. But the fight isn't over, is it? There will always be others who want what Kael had. Yes, Salira said softly. But now we face them together. He turned to her. Together, he echoed. For a moment silence filled the night. Then Salira spoke again, her voice quiet. When Kael bound you, I thought it a mistake. I thought no human could carry his place, but you have shown me otherwise. You are not just here by chance, Daniel. You are here because you belong. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked out at the stars again, his voice steady. Maybe that's what Kael wanted. Not just to save you, not just to protect his house. Maybe he wanted us to build something new, something stronger. Salira's gaze lingered on him. Then we will build it. And in that moment, Daniel knew the truth. This was no longer Kael's story. It was theirs. In the days that followed, word spread quickly across the Velari worlds. Humans were no longer seen only as workers, engineers, or outsiders. They were seen as more, as partners, as equals. Daniel's name was spoken with respect, not because he was a noble, not because he commanded wealth, but because he had stood in the council chamber, faced down one of the strongest houses and refused to bow, and beside him, Salira stood, her presence as strong as ever, her trust in him unshaken. Together, they guided House Seroth into a new age, an age where human and Velari walked side by side, an age built not on fear but on truth, and on a bond that no enemy could break.